Hello and Flavor Friday, everyone. Welcome to Flavor Town. Today we are going to be going over Tinto flavor number 2, which is covering Florence, and this thing is absolutely jam-packed. If we start scrolling, we're going to need to continue to make up more and more words just to get through the entire scroll while still talking. There's absolutely so much stuff in here, we could just say test, 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 and that is the flavor for Florence. Massive. And this is just one country in EU5, and this is just one example of all the flavor we have for this country. Going through this is so much more stuff than I expected when I was skimming through it initially, and just really excited to dig into it. And so without further ado, let's take a big bite into Flavor Town. Hello and welcome for the second week to Tinto Flavor, the new series in which we show the flavor content of the last super secret Project Caesar. This is a little bit strange because I thought Pavia was on board. I thought we had converted Pavia. You know, last week he did in fact wish everyone a happy Friday. Forgot to capitalize, but that's okay because this is the first one. But we did not get our happy Friday from Pavia. Of course, everyone knows that Flavor Friday is in fact interchangeable with Happy Friday, so that's an acceptable substitute. But strange to not see it from him, or he misspelled it. We're just gonna assume it's the second one. Today, we will be taking a look at Florence. I hope you get visually stunned by what you see, but not a rapid heartbeat. My heartbeat is rapid, and by the time we get through this, I'm probably going to need a towel. Fainting, confusion, or hallucinations, as it happened to Stendhal when he visited the city in 1817. So let's start. The Florentine dominion stands strong atop the cusp of a new age. Our republic has stood the test of time and is located in prime position to take advantage of our region's prosperity and affluence. Around us, rivaling states and potential allies all make their moves in a bid to influence and expand their territory in Italy. Really, I loved playing in Italy in Europa Universalis 3 and 4, so for Project Teaser, of course, we are very excited for it. /n/n, I assume this is supposed to be a page break or a paragraph break of some kind, but, you know, it do be like that sometimes. However, a few are as well known for their aptitude in arts and cultural influence as are forums of thought in Florence. Under the guidance of capable administration and educated people, the coming of the century will elevate our people and have us shine brightly as pioneering inventors during a time of the Great Enlightening. So we have critical period during the Enlightenment era. We had like Leonardo da Vinci in there, who of course immediately comes to mind for me because, you know, generalist. And then we have the Medicis, where we have the institution of banking. We had mercenaries. We had like all kinds of things going on in Italy. And so I really do think that this is kind of a really flavor-packed example. And we have kind of our first little screenshot, Consul Giacomo Gabrielli. Hopefully I pronounced some of these things correctly, but mostly incorrectly, with the Republic of Florence, where this guy's going to have 70 admin, 45 diplo, 80 martial. As usual, please consider the UI, 2D, and 3D art as work in progress. Of course, everyone always complains, oh, it looks so bad. Well, that's because that's the last thing they polish in a game. You gotta look past that. You gotta look through the sunglasses of this is gonna look way more stylish when he comes out. This hat's gonna be way more fancy, mostly, etc. We have here two elements that appear in the country selection screen, aka the lobby. The first is the flavor immersion text that countries with unique content have. They have dynamic localization keys, which are two words in bold that appear in text, and while hovered allow to check a game concept. So, do we see a little bit of a hover? No. The second is, okay. Is this what we're hovering? I don't think so. The second is a type of screenshot of the country name, flag, ruler, and the three main elements that define that country. Government type, republic, country type, settled country, and country rank, country. The court room illustration is the generic one for European countries, but it can potentially be unique. So that is what we're looking at. So let's kind of go through it. We have two elements here. The first is the immersion text that appears with unique content we have. Flavor immersion text. I don't know if I necessarily see what flavor immersion text is here. That's keying us that this is going to be a flavorful thing. Dynamic localization keys with two words in bold that appear in the text. I don't really see these words in bold. is this Republic of Florence, which while hovered allow us to check a game concept. Is this stuff up here? This is, I think that this up here is the three elements: the government type, republic, the country type, settled country, and the country rank, country, courtroom illustration, all this background. Okay, so not necessarily, I think, gleaning out exactly what we're supposed to do from here, where it's going to be, when we are selecting a country, show us whether or not they have unique flavor. But let's jump into the country itself. Tuscany is a lovely place, isn't it? It do be. Not as nice as Florence, though. Or is it? It is Florence. Florence is the city, Tuscany is the nation, right? Okay. The Republic of Florence is Signora, or is it? Man, now I'm questioning myself. Okay, let's continue. The Republic of Florence is a Signora, which is a unique major government reform for Italian countries, which will give progress towards decentralization. We, of course, had a bunch of powers that were kind of operated a lot like city-states vying for power, so that does make sense that it will decentralize you. Decrease crown power a lot was decentralized, and in return, we get replaced cabinet minister cost minus 10%. We were more meritocratic, let's say, and improved relation plus 10%, a lot of jockeying for power. A specific Italian form of city republican government power is concentrated in the form of signor. These individuals are elected for a specific period of time, usually from the most influential members of the city, but in many cases are also foreign rulers who are invited to rule the signora. I do think that one of the, if I recall correctly, one of the major Italian, like, vying for power stuff did operate between both the Pope, who wrested a ton of control over the peninsula, and between France, although my history is a little bit shaky. I think this is quite a bit after the start date that this happened, though. The reform unlocks a succession law, the elective potestate. This is a type of succession law of a republic in which the ruler is selected from a country that has a presence in the region of its capital. I assume that the presence in the region of the capital can include, for example, France, if they decide to get in there. Decided by election, rules for life, allows male, allows female, allows nobility and burghers, and eligible country characters are ranked as follows: a score per administrative ability, diplomatic ability, military ability, and score per years of age. So we will see, first of all, it will have a very heavy bias towards age, in that if you have a 60-year-old character, that's 60 points. But also, it's given quite a bit of score from administrative ability, diplomatic ability, military ability. If we scroll up here, we can see this character up here, which this is a pretty hefty score. This is the mil plus the diplo is 125, plus this 195. So this is going to be a primarily meritocratic appointment, right? Where the person who is the best and well, generally speaking, the best ruler plus a slight modifier to age is going to be the person who likely gains control of the nation as your ruler, which is a little bit interesting. I don't know too much about, the succession laws in Florence, so it's difficult, but this is a unique law that we are seeing. Florence also has a unique estate privilege for its senate, the flavor name of the nobility. There's no social mobility here. For republics, the Signora Council, where we will be getting 5% happiness. I assume this is applying to the estate of the nobles, and plus 50% power to them, with minus maximum tax for the noble estate. If you're taxing them less, in theory, I think they have more money to do with what they want, and plus stability decay. And so I think that this is a negative modifier because it's in red, and so this will allow you to give a little bit more power to them in exchange for some happiness. The Signora in Florence is the name of the Council of 9 that governs the city. Its members taken from the different guilds. Every 2 months, there's a lottery to renovate the council, so the constant shuffling ensures that the interests of the Republic prevail over personal ones. The fact all its members come from the guilds, though, makes it so that same families are always the ones in charge. So it is a sort of, it's actually a strange, interesting sort of nobility here. Maybe the stability decay is a good modifier. I think that this is, or actually, if it decays faster, then maybe if you're unstable, you regain stability faster, and if you're high stability, you decrease stability faster towards the equilibrium, and you just move to the equilibrium faster, which kind of tracks if you have a large, like, rotating council, that no one can keep things together for too long because they're going to get rotated out, but no one can mess it up for too long either. But we do see a lot of extra power in the hands of the nobles because those are the only ones, just the 9 families, are allowed. And a unique estate privilege for the burghers, Florence guilds. Now this one looks exciting to me. We see plus 5% happiness, plus 25% power, so will enhance the burghers and allow you to move away from the nobility, the Council of 9, if you will. And we will get monthly progress towards plutocracy. We love to kind of shift ourselves in a cultural type of way. This will move us in a more trade orientation. Monthly inflation, minus 0.02%. This was a very, very strong modifier in previous Europa games, expecting to see that be strong. And minus bank interest. I don't know if this is good or bad, because if we're pulling loans from other people, them having to pay us more interest is good, but at the same time, maybe it's good in the sense that the AI will look to get loans from the person with the lowest interest, and by having lower interest, you're more competitive for loans and allows you to loan more countries money, something like this. Or maybe this allows you as the nation to draw from your bank at a lower interest rate, and this is positive in this way. It is green, so we do assume it's positive. And the flavor text reads, the different artisans and merchants of Florence have a tradition of being associated into different guilds. This ensures not only a standard of quality for the products, but also avoids unfair competition. However, the power and influence that these guilds hold as a result is undeniable. And so we will see a little bit of some competition being associated into different guilds, you know, or healthy competition, but in exchange, more power to the guilds. This unlocks a unique socioeconomic law, the Primacy of Florentine guilds, in which you can pick one of 3 different policies to embrace, promoting one of 3 of the different types of guilds. We will have one of the 3 different types of guilds, so we're going to be looking through several of these here, or 3 of these rather, that is several. But we get burgher estate satisfaction equilibrium plus 5%, and if we're giving them power and then giving them satisfaction, generally that seems like a good play pattern. I'm not exactly sure. There's too many moving parts to really speculate exactly how it's going to play out, but this does seem, if they're happy and powerful, this seems maybe not exactly what you would want, because you would want more crown power, you'd want more centralized authority yourself, but you certainly don't want the powerful people to be unhappy. So if the nobles were really powerful and unhappy, you shifting powers to the burghers and making them happy at the same time, this does seem like something that would be a good thing. So it also gives production efficiency plus 10%. I'm not sure how much of this modifier you will stack and how valuable 10% is. 10% when layered on top of 100%, just base rate, is incredibly valuable, but if you have 8 of these 10% modifiers already, it's worth a whole lot less, because layering, turning 180% into 190% is not as big an increase as moving 110%, or sorry, 100% to 110%, relativistically. In an absolute sense, it's the same increase, but relativistically it is different. Taking a look at which one of these we can empower the burgher state, the Arti Maggiore, the burgher state satisfaction equilibrium plus 5%, more power, more production efficiency. Okay, so this is the selection that has been made in the Primacy of the Florentine guilds, the one we had already looked at, the Arti Mediani, which gives possible burghers in towns and cities plus 100. I don't know what the base rate is, but this, in theory, is probably giving a similar type of feel as plus satisfaction, although there's probably some distinctions in regards to which one's better. The satisfaction equilibrium is minus 5%. Oh, maybe that's... Well, so making more of them is probably a way to increase power, but this makes them less satisfied. I don't know about that. Buildings cost minus 5%. It does seem like quite a strong modifier, though, in general. And then we have, especially if it stacks additively with other sources of building cost reduction, because the first 10%, or like, let's say you have minus 25% building cost reduction, it moves it from being 100 to 75. But then when you would get an additional 25%, right, it moves you from being 75 to 50. So the first decrease in cost represents represented to you a minus 25% decrease, but the second decrease represents a minus 33% relative to what you're building. And eventually, obviously, if you get minus 100%, buildings are completely free, so stacking these modifiers is very, very strong, although I think that as far from a developer perspective, they're probably a little bit leery about the notion of you being able to stack them, but you know, in terms of building up, Italy might be a stronger or easier place to build up playing as Florence as a result of you having unique access to this minus building cost modifier. Arti Minori gives monthly progress to free subjects. Okay, so we get to affect the culture, move things towards free subjects. Burger state satisfaction equilibrium, minus 10%, but in return we get peasant to state satisfaction, and maximum RGO size in towns and cities, plus 20%. That also seems like a strong modifier, but notably, this is a strong modifier if we're already at our maximum RGO size, right? And if we're not yet achieved our current maximum, there's no sense in increasing a cap from, you know, 100 to 120 if you only have 80 RGOs. And so it might be the case that you want to be on this one initially, which gives a minus building costs. You build up the RGOs, and then you swap to this one once you've capped out the RGOs, something like this, in terms of how you play about it. Florence has another unique policy, even more, for the legal code law, which is called consiglio. Generalist mispronounces every word, and this will give you plus 5% nobles power, plus 5% burghers power, peasants estate satisfaction minus 20%. All this seems pretty bad, but cabinet seats plus 1. Don't know exactly how strong this is. We assume this is kind of strong. A body of aristocrats of various classes of citizens, including merchants, artisans, as well as bankers. The Consiglio Maggiore is in charge of the autocratic apparatus within our republic. Okay, fair enough. Florence also has unique advances, 13 in total. So that's 13 unique techs for Florence specifically, spread out amongst the different ages, of which I'm going to show a few selected ones. And I'm very excited. Arte della Lana, one of the most influential industries in Florence, the production of quality cloth, supported by a strong workforce, has built the fortunes of many prospecting merchants and powerful individuals across the centuries. Now, my knowledge of the history is a little bit off, but I have read quite a bit about fabric specifically. And if I recall, the first kind of tool for automation was actually developed in Italy for the production of fabric, where it would turn thread into fabric. Just a massive mechanical machine. And I can't remember what the power source was. This wasn't like steam powered or something like this. It might have been a massive like mule that turns a crankshaft that turns all these subsequent gears more and more and more. But this was like, it's not something that you see in like Victoria 3 at all, but in terms of like a historical element that was just very important for the development and the kernel of the idea of automation was the automated loom for the production of cloth. And I don't know if this refers to it because I can't remember if Florence had the first one, but it might have been Florence that had the first automated machine. But here we do see fine cloth output plus 10%. This, of course, will give us an advantage in producing cloth, and so this will move us in this direction if we are playing as Florence. We see the Fiorino d'Oro, which it gives us a plus tax efficiency and minus 1% expected cost of court. Interesting. A very powerful currency backed by excellent golden purity and shared by many states, institutions across Europe. By adopting the florin as our currency, we are sure to positively impact our income and cut down on monetary deficiencies. One of the biggest banks in all of Europe was operating out of Florence by the Medicis. Florentine citizen militia. Monthly Army Tradition 0.03 unlocks Florentine Citizen Militia Army levies. Interesting. If our people are able to stand the test of time, they must be ready to quickly mobilize the defense of our ideals. This is an interesting one because I think Italy operated more through mercenaries, generally speaking, but forming a citizen militia equal in experience and ferocity to other armies in Europe will surely assist in the protection of our domain. I guess maybe this is because they were more economically oriented in the creation of military that it was more citizen-based rather than noble-based. I'm not really sure. We do see it unlocks in the Age of Renaissance, which is quite a bit later than like Age of Traditions. This one unlocks really early, so I don't think it's about the automation. Here we see Uffizi unlocked in the Age of Discovery, unlocks the Uffizi building. There are no modifiers to this, but I assume that this is going to lead in to us talking about the unique buildings. You might notice that 3 of them have unique icons illustrations, while the Florentine Citizen Militia still uses a generic one. We didn't notice that because we don't know which ones are generic, but does that mean... Okay, maybe other people have different militia things. But speaking of Florentine Citizen Militia, it unlocks a unique type of army unit. 2% of valid props will be raised as Florentine City Militia, and we will see the modifiers they have. They use leather and weaponry. They have a monthly kind of manpower cost. We don't really know how to compare all of these things quite yet, but we do see the strength, combat power, frontage, strength damage taken. This is a little bit reduction. So maybe they're more of a defensive unit. They have storage, food storage and consumption, some speed, flanking, secure flanks, plus 100%. A lot of these seems kind of relatively like flat, basic numbers, but this is your basic type of unit, right? The shifting landscape of diplomacy and war in the Italian region dictates that we should not entrust our defense and sovereignty to the paid condottieri. Instead, we should be able to erect a body of Florentine citizen militia quickly to militarize and lacking no qualities, perhaps lacking in quantity when compared to any other troops defend our domain from prospecting conquerors. I mean, like, plus 100, plus 100, combat power 1, I mean, it looks kind of like it's something that is just bread and butter type of basic, which I suppose is maybe what you want, but perhaps good at holding the line for some mercenary crossbowmen behind? Okay. And the Uffizi, the building that we got teased, unlocks a unique building, which is in the capital. It benefits the country by doing this, so it's a capital building. 5% crown power. This is going to be a strong modifier and can help to offset, the need for ambulances, which of course are outside, but more importantly also offset some of the powers you might be giving to the burghers and the nobility, with some of these types of modifiers, right? If we're giving additional burger power, this allows us to help rake it back, and so this could be good here. Let's scroll back down to where we're looking at the Uffizi. We see that it is going to require a whole bunch of stuff because it's going to be a nice building, and it's also going to give cultural influence 0.3. I think that that's going to be a good modifier, and will allow you to be more culturally oriented in Florence, Italy. Originally meant to consolidate the administration of several guilds and agencies, the Uffizi is a valuable source of centralized power, whilst we do love to see it, preserving and displaying various works of art as a sign of cultural superiority and an exhibition of affluence. I wonder if Victoria works on this at all. Victoria is one of the narrative content designers in Victoria 3. I think that's what her role is, but she uses the word whilst a lot. And most of the other people who I've seen their copy do not use the word whilst. And so I wonder if she maybe wrote this copy or not. But all I've shown to you so far is what we consider structural content. That is the type of content that would show up and could be mostly checked when starting a new game by digging and hovering over various different panels in the game. Let's now start with the narrative content, the one that only appears dynamically as you play, the one that appears dynamically as you play the game. Oh. We start a sentence with O. And one comment. Although we have a minimum amount of structural content, and although we usually have a minimum amount of structural content and narrative content for each country with unique flavor, it's widely diverse, or some countries have more structural ones than others that have more narrative content, and vice versa, with others having a balanced amount of each type. Florence can suffer 2 disasters during the game, as outlined, or an outlier in the game. You may see that they have some associated effects as long as they're active, and that they also have associated effects trigger We see 8 for Ciompi, 13 for Savonarola. Here you have the first one, the Ciompi revolt, which has a 5% chance to trigger each month. I assume if we have it triggers if we have certain conditions met, and it gives estates satisfaction equilibrium minus 5.2%. That's pretty bad. Burghers and peasants an additional 10% on top of that, minus wool output, minus silk output, and if we're leaning into being able to produce fine clothing because we have an advantage in that, because we have a unique tech in that isn't at all locked by technology. So this might even be something from a very early game. You're using the arte della lana for fine cloth output. I assume that these are inputs for these things, right? And so this would be a significant destructive force on your economy here. We do see that we have a lot of these conditions, and so if we have these conditions, 5% chance to trigger each month at a time of uncertainty for Florence, the Ciompi, which are comprised of citizens, peasants, and members of lower tier guilds, are threatening with an open revolt. Heavy taxation and very little representation are some of the factors that have given way to the rise of such a widespread revolt. And it requires that we produce these things. Our burger satisfaction and our commoner satisfaction have to be low, and we have a low amount of stability. So we can avoid this if we, avoid getting to these conditions. But we will see that it will have end requirements as well. Let's see. Okay, we don't see what the end requirements are. We just know that they are going to have some, and we will get tick rolls of several different events that can happen that are associated with the Ciompi revolt, the Gente Nuova, the Populo Minuto, spread of the Miserabiles, workers flee the burden of tax, the powers that be, the pressure to reform, and 62% chance of no event. And here's the second one. The rise of the Savonarola, which is going to be another disaster, and progress towards traditionalists. Yuck. Estate satisfaction equilibrium minus 30%. That's a lot. Stability investment minus 0.3, and it will end when at least one of these is the case. Savonarola is dead, or we are a theocracy. So we have a little bit of an end condition here. That's a big yikes, and we get this if we're Catholic, the year is greater than a certain year, we do not have a disaster, and our clergy have less than 80% satisfaction. 80% is a pretty high number. Or we have a greater than 30 spiritualist versus humanist, which is currently not satisfied, so that might be not the case for you at start as Florence. But this seems like one that's considerably harder to avoid. An upstart preacher has started to spread his apocalyptic message, advocating for repentance and reform. His his message is causing quite a stir among the population, and for sure a sign of changing times. We see an upstart preacher. That's the exact same flavor text that we read above. A proposition has come to us to invite this preacher to Florence, arguing that we could gain much from his presence in the city. Yikes, I don't think so. At the very least, we would be sure to benefit from the pull his words have among the masses. Yikes. And so we do see that he has to... Does he have to be in here? We're currently playing Florence. This doesn't say that he has to be in here, but I assume that... I assume that this doesn't start unless you invite him. And inviting him seems kind of bad. Invite him in, however, gives clergy estate satisfaction. We get prestige. We change societal values towards traditionalists. So maybe if you wanted to go traditionalist rather than innovative, you would want to do this. We see his stat line does seem to be, for the purposes of him being elected ruler, it's a little over 200 or it's 201. Never do math when recording a video. It always makes you look stupid. In terms of the mill, diplo, and admin, and then plus the 50, so he'd be 250 in terms of a score. We do see events that can roll each month, each of these being a unique event that we would click through, right? And he has to die in order to stop this, or it become a theocracy. But okay. Inviting Savonarola to Florence may not be a wise decision. I think that that's probably the case. Besides disasters, there are a bunch of interesting flavor DHEs, dynamic historical events, that can happen to Florence, of which I'm going to show you a selection. A curation, if you will, much like how you would curate art. Much like how the Medicis curated art of their own. The first, of course, is the creation of the Medici Bank, in the form of a building-based country ruled by the number of Medici family, of course. The formal establishment of an international de Medici Bank is of no surprise to us. For decades now, the de Medici families have been participated in banking to a lesser scale. Their hard work, excellent management, and excellent connections have granted them the opportunity to shine amongst the stars. With their competition having suffered a financial crash decades ago, the new bank might be able to fill the void that has been left by the crisis. Interest rates be a thing. It founded in 1937 or 97 was one of the most influential international banks, and the family that owned it was one of the richest. And they collected a lot of art and funded a lot of people, had a lot of patrons. One of the owners of the enterprise, Cosimo de' Medici, managed to get enough political influence to establish himself and his family as the rulers of Florentine Republic and later Duchy of Tuscany for the next few centuries. Okay, that's why I was confused. Florence eventually becomes Tuscany, and I was deeply confused at the start of this video. Do they have two different spellings? They have a de Medici here and de Medici here. Okay, fair enough. I don't know which one's correct or incorrect. They're probably both correct, but stylistically you should probably use the same one, right? Unless I don't understand Italian, and it's de Medici when referring to a bank and de Medici when referring to a person, and that might be the case because the Italian, yeah, okay. If you select the first option, you will continue playing as Florence. The second option makes you continue playing as the Bank of Medici. I always wanted to be a bank. Back when I was a 5-year-old child, my mom's like, "Do you want to be a firefighter?" I was like, "No, I want to be a building," and she's like, "What? You can't be a building," and I was like, "No, you're wrong, Mom. One day I'm going to be a bank." And she's like, "You're crazy," and I'm like, "I'm a bank." This is true story. This is a common type of content. This is not a common type of content at all, but a very special one worth showing. This event creates a building in the location of Florence, a bank, and also an independent BBC, which of course is big credit, the Bank of Medici. The bank in Florence, we see, is going to give us a trade advantage, 0.10, tax base to owner, 5%. This seems good. Market access, I don't know how important critical market access is. It is going to affect whether or not we get our needs met here. The Bank of Medici here is going to be, we see this as our country. We see that this means it's a republic. This means it's settled, and this is our country size. Ruler, chairman, Talento di Medici. Oligarchical elective, sounds about right. Culture, Tuscan, capital, Florence. Population, 0. Tax base, 0. I assume that those aren't filled in correctly. They have plus 60 opinion on the Republic of Florence, is a Holy Roman Empire with Medici Florence in the Catholic Church, and distance of 0. Okay, fair enough. Two more banking countries are starting in Florence with 1337, the banks of Peruzzi and Bardi. It also shows the Medici after triggering the event. Okay. There are more events related to the Medici's rise of power in Florence, but let me not reveal all the interesting content today, so let's continue with other events. Okay, so there's even more, but wait, there's more. An interesting historical character in Florence's 14th century is Sir John Hawkwood. Sorry, I was about to, I just like, my brain said Hackwood, and I was about to call him a hack. But he was an infamous condottieri. John Hackwood is a soldier of fortune from Great Britain, having acquired extensive experience while fighting for his suzerain. He now seeks employment among the rich republics of Italy. This condottiero is now offering his services to us. Our pockets, of course, not deep enough for the hawk. If you decide to hire him, you will be able to get a unique mercenary company called the White Company, led by Hawkwood as general, which will have a 1,500 infantry regiment, or 15 infantry regiments, 1,500 men, and 5 cavalry regiments. We will also have famous artists from Florentine Renaissance, such as Leonardo Bruni, the first modern historian, an Italian humanist and historian, shout out to humanism, was born into a prominent Florentine family where he received an excellent education that cultivated his intellectual curiosity and love for learning. Known for his exceptional linguistic abilities, Leonardo Bruni became fluent in Latin and Greek, allowing him to engage deeply with classical texts and ideas because they wrote everything in Latin those days. An affluent and tutored upbringing fostered his strong strong character traits of curiosity, critical thinking, and passion for knowledge. His insatiable thirst for understanding the past and his dedication, to shout out to linguistics where you misread words, to preserving and promoting the classical learning surely makes him a prominent figure in the humanist movement, leaving a lasting impact on Renaissance intellectual thought. We, of course, see a Leonardo here, and we really just truly only think of one other Leonardo. Our heart has, like, room for only one, and that's Leonardo da Vinci. Strapping man. Does he have his own unique background? His background is a little bit different. We do see the Mona Lisa in it. Oh, Leonardo da Vinci is an Italian painter. That's right, he still lives on in our heart. Get out of here. He is an Italian painter, draftsman, sculptor, architect, and engineer. We need a few more commas and a few more things, but, you know, they only have so much space. Whose genius, perhaps more than that of any other figure, shall epitomize the Renaissance, a humanist ideal. His works are among the most widely popular, getting all the cars to come down to the yard, and influential paintings of the art world. The Mona Lisa is probably the most expensive piece of art if it were ever to be sold. His notebooks reveal a spirit of scientific inquiry and mechanical innovativeness that are unprecedented in our time. In our time today, he, like, invented, like, helicopters and tanks and, like, these types of things, and, like, tons of mechanical drawings and stuff like this. And a lot of his weapons of war, he had things that would work perfectly, except for one thing that was intentionally done incorrectly in his drawings, and then if you just fix the one thing, it would work. But it was such that if he were to lose his journal and someone assembled it without understanding it, it wouldn't operate in the way that it was designed to. But he is an artist. Look at this. Just artist? Surely he's more than just an artist. But okay, this is the tag that they have to give him in game. We see Donato di Niccolo di Beto Bardi, commonly known as Donatello, is a renowned Italian sculptor known for revolutionizing the art of sculpture through his innovative techniques and lifelike representations. His works are characterized by their exceptional skill and attention to detail. His famous sculptures, such as David, which that's a nice sculpture, and the Feast of Herod, showcasing his mastery of capturing human emotions and expressions. His contributions to the art world have had a profound impact, influencing future generations of sculptors, and his works are constantly celebrated for their beauty, realism, and significant role in the development of Renaissance art. He, of course, would be welcome. Not as welcome as Leonardo da Vinci, but, you know, it do be like that. But besides characters, you have events that may be related to buildings, such as the construction of the Duomo of Florence, that may end up with a unique work of art. If I recall correctly, the Duomo of Florence was the most massive dome that had ever been constructed up to that time, if I recall correctly, which is... We see the Florence Cathedral. Man, there's another ambulance. So, yeah. Hope they make it. Pour one out for the boy. The Florence Cathedral. For some time, the Grand Cathedral in Florence has approached us with ambitions to design and designs to complete the rest of the cathedral and properly embellish it. The roof was the problem. However, the work would be quite extensive, and thus many of our advisors insist that we should instead focus on maintaining the existence building as is. If I recall the history correctly, they built up like this massive cathedral, and then they didn't finish the roof because they wanted to make a dome, and then they're like, bro, dog, this is too big, we can't make it, and then they made it. Okay, Duomo di Firenze, which is magnum opus. No, but this isn't a dome. Okay, well, all right. Okay. And much more Florence-related content, as there are dozens of unique flavor events. But I think that is enough showcase for today, as we do not want to spoil the fun of starting a game for the first time. Next week, we will be taking a unique look at the flavor for Novgorod. Cheers! Cheers, but no Happy Friday. No Flavor Friday either, which of course is an acceptable substitute for Happy Friday. But that is our first look at some flavor. Really, really excited going through this. This looks like so much fun, and that, you know, we're getting a lot of unique things that are going to allow us to play in different ways and really kind of embody like this merchant, innovative, technological type of republic that was very commerce oriented, this type of stuff, humanist ideals. So excited for a lot of this stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe, or hit the notification bell. The notification bell is actually probably the most important one. But other than that, you know, have a Flavor Friday.